This will not be the first time that I stand at this pulpit on a Sunday morning and apologize to you. 2 weeks ago, we worshiped together on New Year's Eve, and I centered the hopeful mission of the Christian Science Journal and its now deceased leader, Mary Baker Eddy, as a way to cultivate hope in this coming year, 2024. And later that day, it was brought to my attention that the Christian Science Church has and continues to use and promote discriminatory religious language and dogma against the LGBTQIA+ population, and the harm that they have caused and continue to cause runs deep and wide. I did not know this, and I am so sorry if that worship service caused you pain or stress. If I ever again pull from the Christian Science tradition, I promise you I will be more sensitive about the pain it has caused so many. And if you have more to share with me about the impact that this might have had on you, please do know my door is open to you. My door is always open to you. And it's been a really good thing to have this on my heart and mind these past few weeks. For how we contend with the harms that we more often than not, unintentionally enact or perpetuate with one another in community, how we say ouch to one another, how we try for repair, amends, accountability, how we in our own bodies and souls have the capacity for some kind of spiritual resiliency, for that's what I believe it takes to make this kind of deep relationality possible. How we do this, it's not easy. I wrestle with it all the time. I even shy away from it because I'm uncomfortable and because I'm afraid. And I say that this has been good to have on my heart recently because these are all themes, like where the rubber meets the road themes and realities that fall under the umbrella of our month's worship theme of liberating love, which is a pointed expression of Reverend Martin Luther King Jr.'s vision of the beloved community. Reverend King believed and preached about the beloved community as the bedrock to collective liberation, and he defined it this way, beloved community this way. It is a love-centered way of thinking, speaking, acting, and engaging that leads to personal, cultural, and societal transformation. So building the beloved community, a love-centered way of thinking, speaking, acting, and engaging that leads to personal, cultural, and societal transformation, this is what anti-oppression work is and hopes to be. And this congregation has been putting liberating love and the hope and practice of building beloved community into action in a variety of ways for a very long time. You might have not articulated this way, but you have. I know you've been trying for it, big time, and longing for it. And the big one, most recently, being through efforts to reckon with your history, right? How this history is told, and through whose lens, and how you sit in the discomforts of disagreement, of conflict, how you make mistakes, and how you make amends, and how you also sit in the discomforts of the unknown, for none of us yet know where this is going to take us. And I sense that your hopes for finding a good path forward, for you will, we will, for how your whole history is told and displayed, might be guided by and rooted in Reverend King's definition. A love-centered way of thinking, speaking, acting, and engaging that leads to personal, cultural, and societal transformation. Yeah, that's the hope. So I made the decision just this past week to reconfigure how this month's theme of liberating love, and how this service today, whose hope is to honor Reverend King well, might stretch out over the month. So this service, this sermon has a part 1, 2, and 3. And each will home in on the particularities of liberating love and building the beloved community. It's good to get those big, overarching understandings, but anti-oppression and anti-racist work requires scooting on in close, my friends, to take an honest assessment of the nitty-gritty who we are, how we are, and what we do stuff. All those themes I mentioned earlier, intent and impact, harm, ouch, repair, amends, conflict, these are all about the relational, and my aim is to hold tight to them all month. And I also plan to offer you some resources on all of this, which will be in this week's newsletter and in the subsequent newsletters this month. Reverend King's vision of beloved community, the dismantling of systems that oppress human beings, it was not a lofty utopian goal. It was realistic and achievable. It doesn't have a destination point or a final ending, but it is achievable. And he knew it was going to require what he called a qualitative change in our souls, as well as a quantitative change in our lives. And in the last 20-odd years, a swell of research and tried and true teachings rooted in this understanding have emerged about how to achievably change, dismantle, disrupt, and heal the unjust, cruel, divisive, and oppressive systems that we've all of us, been swimming around in for centuries. And these teachings all center in the relational, all of them. And I gotta tell ya, me included, most of us don't want to contend with them because they fundamentally challenge who we are, how we think about things, and how we do things. Much easier to just stick with the big overarching theme than to get into the nitty-gritty stuff. I get it. Beloved community requires, though, a qualitative change in our souls, as well as a quantitative change in our lives. So let's scoot in close now. I'm about to name some of the ways that most communities that are made up mainly of white people conduct themselves, that unintentionally and without pointed malice uphold and perpetuate systems of oppression. It's just how we white folk autopilot operate because it's what we learned and inherited growing up. So these are drawn from some of the tried and true research and teachings that have emerged in the past several decades. Most predominantly white communities have these characteristics. We strive for perfectionism and tend to focus on what's wrong or inadequate rather than on opportunities for creative growth or appreciation for the imperfect process. We prize urgency and visible work plans with measurable benchmarks and results quantity over inclusive, flexible, relational process quality. We worship the written word, and we prize and celebrate and promote those who can document everything with perfect grammar and succinct and articulate precision, over the variety of ways we humans get and share information. We believe there's only one right way, and if people don't conform to it, then there's something wrong with them, over the belief that there are a multitude of ways to get things done, most of which span beyond our imaginations and/or cultural way of doing them. We believe that things are either or, good, bad, right, wrong, with us, against us, with little capacity for believing most things to be both and complex. We hoard power and believe that there's only so much to go around and be shared in, and we feel threatened and defensive when anyone suggests changes in how things are done. Over open discussions about how leadership is doing, explicitly sharing power and believing that we are better leaders when we work together and are challenged to grow and change. We fear open conflict, something I'm digging into more deeply next week for the part 2. And we find ourselves blaming people who create conflict or bring an issue forward that makes us uncomfortable, equating them and difficult issues with impoliteness, rudeness, or being out of line, thereby prizing and celebrating those who are polite and nice, over expecting, practicing, holding conflict in covenant and in care as a place of revelation and reparation. And again, I'll say a whole lot more about this next week. Now, these are just some of the relational characteristics, and take a breath, of what is called white supremacy culture. And this was conceived of by Tema Okun in 1999, and it is now celebrated, centered, and studied across churches, large organizations, and beyond as a transformational, personal, and structural strategy in anti-oppression work. And I really hope you didn't flatline as I read them, or when I said white supremacy culture. We white people tend to do this, just retreat and shut down when we hear words like this. I know. Me too. Me too. Friends, it is imperative that we engage in this close examination of ourselves, not from a place of shame, but from a place of liberation. Because, hear this, we're all oppressed by these behaviors. How we unconsciously function like that, it's exhausting. No one's flourishing under these expectations of themselves or each other, particularly those who've been relegated to the margins. It robs us of our humanity, and it robs us of relationality. Perfectionism, only one right way to do things, urgency, power hoarding, being told you are bad for having a dissenting opinion or different experience. We would not teach these things to our children. They're cruel and lonely waters to swim in, don't you think? It is imperative that each of us, with love in our hearts, take seriously this close examination of ourselves and how we function. And church is the perfect practice ground for this. We're in it together. And I want to make crystal clear to you all. Please hear this. I participate in and perpetuate most of those white supremacy characteristics all the time. And those are only some. She's got 14. I just named 7, so I'll share some of those resources with you on Friday. I am working to change this in myself and in my relationships. And I know that so many of you are trying to do this too. Unitarian-Universalism is right alongside us, trying to do this too. I am not, and hear this clearly too, I am not advocating for moral purity in every nook and cranny of our community as a more full expression of our Unitarian Universalist faith. I am not advocating for a community that thinks call out or cancel culture is one that is beloved. And I am not advocating for erasing our history so that we can build beloved community. God, no. I'm not advocating for a church of tear it all down, tear it all up, tear each other up as a way to dismantle oppression. And I am for sure not advocating for a community where no one's at the helm of anything because leadership, making decisions, organization, accountability, timelines, or taking or storing decent minutes means you're a white supremacist. No. I am advocating for a community where our hearts and minds are in the business of self-examination and the everyday practice of transformation. I am advocating for a community tied up in each other's ability to see that all people, all human beings are valuable here. Their experiences are valuable here, and not just human beings that look and think and do like us. I am advocating for the cultivation of personal spiritual resiliency that allows for hard truths to be shared, amends to be made and taken seriously, and real, authentic, inspired, and lasting relationality to happen here. I am advocating for, as Reverend Marta Valentine so beautifully says, a church where we throw out our exceptional identity and humble ourselves. I am advocating for us to look ourselves not just in our faces, but in our souls and ask ourselves, who are we really? Which Unitarian Universalism, what beloved community are we taking into the future? I am advocating for a way of being where we do not become complacent, unconscious, sleepy, unaware, callous, or as Reverend King likes to call it, soft-minded conformists. None of us want this. King preaches that it is only through an inner spiritual transformation do we gain the strength to love and to fight for all of this, to make the beloved community manifest, to do love. That is the church I'm advocating for, and I know I'm not alone in this. I know it. I can feel it here every day. So over the coming days and weeks, I really hope you'll commit to taking breaths and reading through some of the resources that I plan to share with you, and attempt to not shut down or flatline or panic. Remember, collective liberation work draws us towards each other, not away. It draws us deeper into our best, most holy and loving selves, not apart. Not apart. And it's important that we give Reverend King the last words here from his sermon, Transformed Nonconformist, preached from Dexter Baptist Church. The saving of the world from pending doom will come not through the complacent adjustment of the conforming majority, but through the creative maladjustment of a non-conforming minority. We must make a choice. Will we